Hello and welcome. So continuing on with your comments and questions, and pausing occasionally for discussion on certain topics of particular interest. The first comment we come to relates to, as it says here, in another video, the difference between Jesus and the Buddha. How can you prove that reincarnation is real? So I think there's a video that proved to be quite popular, not comparing, but really highlighting the difference between the teachings of the Buddha and those of Jesus Christ in the Bible. So the Buddhist scriptures, the Tipitaka, primarily the Sutta Pitaka, the teachings, the words, the discourses of the Buddha, compared to the teachings of Jesus Christ in the Bible, where I said that everything the Buddha says can be proven, and whereas in Christianity it's very much faith-based, and all the teachings, other than on a practical level, all religions share the same philosophy of kindness, let's say, to one another, treating our neighbours as we would like to be treated ourselves, and have a certain aspect to them of moral precepts. But over and above that, much to do with religion is about what happens after death. What is the point of this life itself? So how can you prove that reincarnation is real? Well, reincarnation isn't a Buddhist term. We use the term rebirth, which is something quite different. Reincarnation is a spirit or soul which is permanent being reincarnated, meaning taking a new form, bodily form. Whereas in Buddhism, we work on the principle of rebirth, whereby we create the causes and conditions for birth, this cycle of existence, to happen again, with no inherent characteristics of the previous life. However, what we do in that previous life, what we are doing in this previous life, this current life, is the causes and conditions for rebirth. And that can be explained within the context of this lifetime alone. So what we're doing now, for instance, if we're in education, learning, studying, enabling us to go on to further education, qualify, and for instance become a doctor, what you're doing there is creating the causes and conditions to no longer be a student, but to be reborn as a doctor. Whereas you could decide not to be educated and just enjoy life, have fun, go out socializing, and one might then have to take another sort of job that maybe is sufficient and good enough for you, but is as a result of the causes and conditions that you put in place. So the nature of rebirth is along those lines. What we do in this life will determine whether or not there is sufficient cause for rebirth or sufficient cause to end that cycle of rebirth. But nevertheless, the core the question really is relating to this idea of comparison between the teachings of the Bible and the teachings of the Sutta Pitaka, in that the core difference is in Christianity, and in fact in most theistic religious philosophies, it is a requirement that there is belief, faith in terms of belief in those words, in those teachings, without question or requirement of proof. Whereas the Buddha specifically says that whatever he says, whether it's relating to Buddhist cosmology, the 31 realms of existence, his previous lives, his own attainments and miraculous abilities, he is not asking anyone of his close disciples or future practitioners to believe that, but to practice the way he has taught, to come to understand and experientially see for themselves. Not waiting until the end of this lifetime, death, to be born into some heavenly realm or hell realm or future existence, but to experience within this lifetime the possibility of freedom from suffering and future rebirth. Through liberation from attachment to this physical body, thinking brain, experience and life, not ignoring that we can enjoy things, we can enjoy this life, we can have aspects of it we don't enjoy, don't like. We'll have liking and disliking, but not attaching to either of those emotions. Not holding on to them, but more seeing everything for its true characteristics of impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self, out of our control. No permanent soul, spirit, thing to be reborn, but just the opportunity to create conditions in which you can be liberated, free from suffering within this lifetime. So that's the difference. Jesus and most theistic religions teach belief. This is the word, believe it, or eternal hell. The Buddha teaches, well, this is the way it is. Try this out for yourself, experience it, and you'll know. The commonality is they all are based on a foundation of moral virtue, sila, and generosity, giving to others, dana. Sila and dana are the Pali words. So that's what's being discussed in either that short video or the longer form video there in relation to the difference between theistic belief faiths, faiths being the operative word there, and Buddhism and the practice, Buddhist practice, practice being the operative word there. It's not to say that we don't have faith in Buddhism. We have a specific Pali word for that too, which is saddha. And saddha is, albeit usually translated as faith, is more understood to mean confidence. That is, confidence in those words of the Buddha, teachings of the Buddha, that they will bring us towards liberation within this lifetime. And why we can have confidence in them is because he's specifically not asking us to believe anything, or his subsequent disciples. No one is asking us to believe anything, but to simply practice and experience it for ourselves. And therefore we can have confidence in those words. But we need to develop faith, saddha, confidence in those teachings in order to be able to practice, put those words into practice, do it for ourselves, keep the precepts, meditate, and therefore benefit from freedom from suffering within this lifetime and know future rebirth. as opposed to reincarnation, not a Buddhist principle. Oh wow. Very long question, but we're right at the beginning, so I'm just going to read through it, and hopefully this is a question in here somewhere. Okay. I've been meditating consistently, often from 4 to 5 a.m., but I still experience strong anger and agitation during the day. Sometimes, after a session, I feel calmer, but the underlying anger returns easily. Recently, I even meditated while feeling very angry, and I could feel the body vibrating with tension. I'm troubled by the lack of progress and wonder if I should be doing something more during meditation. My temperament leans towards worry and greed, and I'm unsure how to work with these states skillfully. When these strong, unpleasant feelings arise during meditation, what should I actually do with them? Should I stay with the breath, observe the sensation, relax the body, or apply a different method? I want to make sure I'm approaching the experience correctly rather than suppressing it or getting overwhelmed. I also aspire to reach at least a basic jhana in this lifetime, which is why I continue meditating, even when anger is present. At the same time, I find myself concerned about my lack of progress and unsure how to recognize the right markers of development. Could you guide me on how to practice in a way that supports both stability and genuine progress? Okay, so a few questions in there as the train goes by. So the first thing we come to is anger itself. Well, you need to ascertain what it is that's making you angry. What are you angry about? That's the first step, isn't it? It's no good looking at meditation as a cure-all fix for everything. Whilst it will assist you to see clearly and deal with or accept the vicissitudes of life more comfortably, it isn't necessarily the cure. The cure is the Noble Eightfold Path holistically. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right effort, mindfulness in everything we do, and meditation as a way of helping to develop the strength of power of mind for concentration to enable mindfulness in everything we do. That is the practice. It's no good saying, I'm angry, I'll sit and keep watching the breath and doing this and doing that in a perfunctory manner, in a rote form. That's not going to work. If there's something that's really troubling you, deal with it, see what it is. So what's making you angry? What is your anger coming from? You say, and again, making some assumptions from what you've heard and applying them to your own practice, that you have a tendency towards, you say, where does it say that? My temperament leans towards worry and greed. I would suggest it's leaning much towards anger. We have greed, hatred, delusion. Greed, yes, is one of the kilesas, defilements. Hatred is where anger is coming from. Delusion is worry. It's confusion. We worry when we don't know what's happening next. So we need to let go of what's happening next. Otherwise it will lead towards more hatred, aversion of your current situation, not being in control. But when we appreciate the characteristics of existence, knowing that nothing is within our control, even these physical bodies or thinking brains, whatever we do with them, exercise or educate ourselves, they're still going to give up at some stage. Everything we have, everything we hold, will be parted from. And that applies to situations and things that we don't like, that we're averse to. They too are impermanent. Seeing this helps us to deal with, accept what is going on in the present moment, here and now. So the first step is, what is it that's making you angry? If it's a situation that you can avoid, then avoid it. If it's the news in general, don't watch the news in general. You can't do anything about it. Watching endless news feeds is not going to help your state of mind or help those suffering. What will help your state of mind and help others who might be suffering is you practicing yourself, and by way of example, showing others how they too can be at peace with their life and how they are living it. Through this practice of sila, moral virtue, samadhi, meditation, developing panya, wisdom, or wholesome mind states, reducing unwholesome mind states. So, stop looking for markers, stop trying to attain to jhana. These efforts in themselves are not samavidya, right effort. They're, if anything, wrong effort. You're giving yourself targets and goals which in turn will be fueling anger, disappointment in yourself. You're having expectations from your meditation. Now, you cannot expect to even live beyond the next breath, let alone to attain certain very high states of absorbed jhana in your meditation. But if you let go of those expectations and practice in accordance with what the Buddha is teaching us, living within the parameters of that Noble Eightfold Path, then you may very well, and are likely to, attain to jhanas. But sitting, meditating, trying to deal with the anger by way of just the breath is not going to really do it for you. What is it? Ask yourself this. Why are you angry? What are you angry about? Anger is based on something. If it's anger because of your not fulfilling expectations, get rid of the expectations. If it's anger about the environment you're in, either ignore the environment you're in or move out of that environment, unless there's something that you can easily change. Change what you can change, but accept what you can't. With equanimity, peace, calm, tranquil states of mind, knowing that your refuge is in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So the practice coming from the Dharma is your true refuge, your true viveka means refuge, and in that we have kaya viveka, that of the body, going to a secluded place where you're undisturbed and can meditate, or if unable to do that, chitta viveka, the refuge for the mind, which is looking internally for that peace and calm rather than externally. So if it's all noisy and disturbing in the environment around, yes, it's difficult to meditate, but you still can. Ultimately, if you've been practicing and you've had the ability to develop the skill of concentration, samadhi, in supportive meditative environments such as meditation retreats and courses away from your usual environment, then you will have the strength to take that ability with mindfulness outside of that situation and apply it anywhere, anytime, any place, anywhere, as I say so often, because that's the point of meditation, not to be walking around in some utopia for the rest of your life, but to live life to the fullest, but with the appreciation of Dharma within those parameters of the Noble Eightfold Path, having citta viveka, a refuge for the mind or heart in which you can really take comfort and call home. Simply by, in any situation, drawing in one breath and knowing, ah, yes, there's the breath, soothing, cooling, tranquilizing. Relaxing your face and being with the present moment here and now without expectation. Even that in itself will dispel anger. So maybe you've thought rather too much about it. You're wanting to progress, you're wanting markers, you want to achieve jhana. Let go of all of that. Find out what it is that's making you angry. You must know that. You're not giving any examples here. What you're doing in terms of the practice in your meditation is correct, but if it's not working, then it's just a method, a technique. A method, a technique won't achieve anything, won't give you peaceful, calm, tranquil states of mind. What you need is to see clearly, vipassana. If you're meditating whilst feeling angry, look at where anger is in the body, how it is physically feeling, focus your conscious awareness on that area. But primarily, what is it specifically that you're angry about? Whatever it is either out of your control or within your control. If it's within your control, deal with it. If it's out of your control, accept it as being an example of all things being out of your control. And when you say about recognizing the markers of development, well, you'll no longer be angry. The eradication of greed, hatred, and delusion is the ultimate goal, and the gradual decrease in greed, decrease in anger, and increase in wisdom or less confusion, decrease in confusion, are the general feelings that one gets as a result of the practice. There's no light bulb specific moments, bang, I'm no longer angry, bang, I'm no longer greedy. That might happen later on, but it's usually a gradual reduction. Even the stages of enlightenment after the first stage of enlightenment, stream entry or sotapanna, sakadagami, anagami, are a reduction in greed and a reduction in hatred. A gradual reducing of towards the final stage of enlightenment, arahantship. But anger and greed, sensual desire is present right up until full enlightenment in varying degrees. Hopefully reducing. That's what you can see. How you're reacting now as a result of your practice to everyday situations by comparison to how you used to act to those same situations before you were practicing. This is how we see the progress of our practice. But take away the expectations. When I was young, moving on to the next question, it's strange. When I was younger, it was taught that nobody is truly enlightened except for only a handful of monks, including the Buddha. Now it seems to mean something else, being obtainable by everybody and is a result of practice. Buddhism has changed a lot in the West since I was a child. It's interesting. Oh, I noticed from this commenter that they were getting a little bit upset. Their question had not been answered. So here we are. I recognize the little, it's not a readable name, numbers and signs. You know, be a little bit patient. Khanti is one of the factors of enlightenment. Patience, it's a virtue. Patience is a virtue. All of the questions, all of the comments are read, the questions, specific questions, are all answered in this format, on this platform, chronologically. So at the moment there's a little bit of a backlog, but we're around about the 20th of whatever month it is now, February, maybe the 19th of February. So as you can see, a certain number of questions each day, they build up, but we get through them eventually. So just be patient, I will get to your comment sooner or later. Now it may be that you've made 1 or 2 comments. If other comments were made between those, they will be reached first. So they don't all get bunched up and read out in one go. So stick with it, because other people's comments and questions are often more useful than your own. You'll find answers in those comments and questions, as I do, from reading them and thinking and answering where best I can from my own experience. I delve into the depths of my memory to come up with answers which help me also. So these comments, these questions are as of much assistance to my practice as hopefully they are to yours. But where they're not, we just put them aside and wait for the next comment or question. With regards to this, I mean, I don't know what your age is, how old you are, but when I was young, I'd never heard of the Buddha. I hadn't even heard of Buddhism until I was beyond middle age, put it that way. So it's kind of irrelevant what we were taught when we were younger. Maybe in Buddhist cultures, they do in Buddhist cultures, like here for instance in Sri Lanka, have Buddhist education, as we have sort of, in my time, we had Christian education in our schools, in our educational system. But really the practice in itself, as far as becoming enlightened is concerned, has not changed. In fact, there's more availability to the Buddha's access to the Buddha's teachings now than there has been ever at any time. However, that can be a situation of not being able to see the wood for the trees, because with so much information, and often so much inaccurate information, it can be a little bit confusing as to what is really the true teachings of Buddhism. But that can soon be overcome when you appreciate that really there's only one teacher, the Buddha. There's only one set of teachings, the Dharma, as in the Tipitaka, specifically the Sutta Pitaka, and that is always our core point of reference. And to help us with that are the Sangha, of which I am an ordained bhikkhu, so I am part of the Sangha. We are here to support you and throughout the world there are monks and there are nuns there to support you in your practice and your training and your learning. Now, I can't answer this question because I have nothing to compare it to or way of understanding where you're getting this information from. I can only guess a lot of this information is coming from what you've heard through the media, online or on the news or read, I don't know. But stop listening, watching, reading. Start doing. And you'll see for yourself it's difficult in worldly life to become enlightened or let go, eradicate greed, hatred and delusion, but it can be done. In the past, historically, in the time of the Buddha, in the area in which he was teaching, there was already in existence meditation. So people were receptive to meditation as a practice, as part of the Noble Eightfold Path. That wasn't the training. The training was conjoining that with sila and developing wisdom through mindfulness in everything we do. Now, with that lacking in where I come from, the Western world, meditation is not, it's heard of, it's done, it's something separate sometimes from Buddhism. It's become more of a separate tantric or yogic exercise That isn't Buddhist meditation. Buddhist meditation is part of a holistic Noble Eightfold Path, and it is only that that leads to what we describe in Buddhism as enlightenment, freedom from suffering in this lifetime and future rebirth. So I would say, yes, it's probably right that Buddhism, no, you say Buddhism has changed a lot in the West since you were a child. No, Buddhism hasn't changed in 2,570 years since the time of the Buddha. It's there in the scriptures, nothing's changed. People's views and opinions and the way they teach it, yes, that's changed remarkably, but that isn't Buddhism. Like in Christianity, people can say, well, Christianity's changed all over the world. You know, people treat it in different ways, do different things. But the original teacher, Jesus Christ, and the teachings in the Bible, they haven't changed. They're still read out in church the same way as they have been for centuries. The Quran, the Torah, the Vedas, it's all the same, old and ancient. We go back to the old and ancient from its origin. Ignore all of this media stuff that you're hearing and ideas, views and opinions. That's just conjecture and discussion. It's sampa palapa, it's useless obstacles in your way. The Buddha's teachings are that of suffering and the end of suffering. This is what we need to know. And greed, hatred and delusion are what we need to put down, let go. Simple as that. If you can do that, you would become enlightened. It's certainly not ever been a case where it's restricted to only a handful of monks, specifically monks, because nuns have become enlightened, lay men have become enlightened, lay women have become enlightened throughout history. There is many of all types of human beings whom have become enlightened from all walks of life throughout history, documented in the scriptures. Okay. Hello, Bante, begins this next question. I was watching a TV show about the stupas and temples that were erected by the ancient Burmese kings out of gold in homage to the Buddha. Also, they displayed the pagodas in Bagan and stated that they were constructed in certain ways to align with Buddhist cosmology. What is Buddhist cosmology? So this is really the study of the 31 planes of existence. So this is from the heavenly realms down to the hell realms, including in between the animal realms and the human realms, and that we know of and are experiencing, but also the godly realms and the deva realms, or angel realms, heavenly realms. There's 31 planes of existence. This is Buddhist cosmology, and it spans over ages and time. So it's really the study of time and space. Now, there have been various interpretations of this, both literally and allegorically, over the ages. And in some parts of the world, in Buddhist countries, many buildings have manifested themselves as a result of various practitioners or faith believers' understanding of that cosmology and a way they can build structures, in a sense, to put them in touch with those other planes of existence. For instance, this is a typical design of stupa behind me there. That's what they call, it's a chedi, is the Pali word. Stupa is, I'm not sure where that word comes from, but we understand in English to be a statue kind of thing, this shape. That particular one is a container for relics. There are no relics in it currently, but it's to contain relics. But its design is such that, like a church spire, you know, in churches and cathedrals all over the world also, they have these pointy up spires going to the heavens. And that's really what the nature of understanding of heavenly realms being above us, hell realms being below us. So focusing all the energies up to the skies is the idea. You can either take that literally or, as I say, allegorically. It's mythology, Buddhist mythology, as well as Buddhist cosmology. Now, it does have its place. It is important in the understanding of Buddhism, because whether it's literal or allegorical, it helps us understand the practice and what we're trying to attain. Even in our meditation practice, we can think of ourselves as sitting with a firm base, as is that stupa. It wouldn't fall over. It's sat, it's upright, it's erect. Our head, our thinking part of our physical body, our thinking brain, is at the top, and we're sitting erect with that uppermost, pointing towards the skies. So there is nothing above us. If we're sitting in a temple or a meditation hall such as this, it's kind of designed with an apex roof to give height and space above us. Or if we're sitting outside, even under the canopy of a tree, the tree is nature's way of exploring Buddhist cosmology and using the atmosphere and environment around it. Its roots firmly in the ground, but its leaves reaching up to the skies. This is the idea of Buddhist cosmology. But it's interpreted in different Buddhist cultures throughout the world in different ways. Now, architecture is very representative of religions throughout the world and always has been throughout history. From the earliest times, you'll see things in my country such as Stonehenge, which is very ancient, and going back to the sort of time of the Buddha, in fact, to modern day structures in modern churches and religious places, temples, mosques, throughout the world, all pointing to the skies, but with it being firmly based on the earth. A kind of conduit, a link. Metaphorically speaking, we go to church together as a community, or we meet at the temple together as a community to practice or pray or worship, all with the same aim in one place. That strength of Kalyanamita, friends, spiritual friends, noble friends, beautiful friendships, it literally means, but friends all with the same aim of moral virtue, meditation and wisdom, or in other religions, you know, just moral virtue, faith and prayer and worship, are all coming together in a place that's representative of that idea of there is more than we just experience, or there is freedom from the suffering as we see it of that experience, to be had here and now in the present moment, and to be developed throughout this lifetime. And those structures are visual representations of that. You can take them as to mean a lot more, and they are venerated as a lot more, as are trees and other religious structures. Or you can take them as simply that, allegorical ways of understanding in a beautiful way our own existence. Coming from the earth and aspiring to the heavens, if you like. Okay. So we've had anger, greed, hatred and delusion. These are the 3 defilements. We've talked a little bit about anger, and with that one, it's coming from hatred. It's really good to determine the root of it, where it's coming from. The harder one to come to determine the root of is delusion, lobha, dosa, moha. So moha, confusion, is a better understanding of what delusion means, because delusion isn't ignorance, it's not a lack of intellectual knowledge, it's confusion. It's having all the intellectual knowledge in the world but not knowing how to apply it. So you could have a PhD in Buddhism but not be able to meditate and never realize freedom from suffering in this lifetime. PhD, paper, certificate is not going to get you freedom from suffering. Meditation is. So the next comment begins with, lately I'm incredibly confused. I don't know what to do with my life. So this is delusion. So this is a good example. Let's read the whole question. I feel like being lost and asking myself, what am I doing in life? Or what is this all about? I look at myself in the mirror and ask myself, what is this human being and why am I here? I feel pointless, and even though I'm aware that I'm not my thoughts, I feel pointless and sad, even though I'm aware I'm not my thoughts. There is still this deep pressure of being lost and can't find peace. When I meditate, I can observe my feelings and thoughts without becoming identified with it, and after that, not even 10 minutes is like being absorbed again in thoughts, nonsense, desire, or searching for the truth, and become lost again. I'm just so confused about life. I feel like I'm in a war within myself. I'd be really grateful if you could give me some advice. So that really is a true example of delusion, confusion. You understand intellectually meditation is good for you and you're practicing that. Now, presumably you understand about sila. You must be keeping all 5 precepts. Now, anyone who's having the odd glass of wine or a few pints of beer occasionally, listening to this, frankly, forget it. You can't really get to any states of attainment if you don't keep all 5 precepts. That's the foundation of this practice. This stupa we were just talking about, its firm base is the precepts. We're aspiring to the point at the very top. If you turn that stupa upside down, it's like having the odd glass of wine or a few pints of beer from time to time. You fall over. It too will fall over. It doesn't work. You need that base. There's an example of stupas and the idea, and levels. They will have these rings around them, various levels and steps towards the point at the top, to keep us focused. But we begin with that foundation to keep us focused of sila. All 5 precepts. Yeah? I reiterate that because I'm not going to ask you to repeat your question, but anyone who's particularly suffering from confusion is often as a result of their not keeping one or some of the precepts. I'm not saying that's the case in respect to your comment here, your questions here, but just in case for those others listening with the same problem. Often delusion, confusion comes as a result of not keeping all 5 precepts. So just reiterating that in general. But specifically, try to really stop thinking so much about it. You're trying to intellectualize your confusion, finding the answers in a book. So it's like trying to read a book to learn how to swim. It's never going to work. Like trying to read a book to learn how to balance on a bicycle. It's never going to work. You have to be doing it. So you've got your foundation of moral precepts. Now, use your meditation time to sit and enjoy meditation. Leaving the past and the future out of it, to be picked up later. After your meditation period, it's okay if you're thinking again. It's okay even if you feel that there's thoughts, as you say, nonsense desire or searching for the truth and feeling lost again. It's okay. Eventually, with time, with practice, that will reduce. Delusion, like greed and hatred, gradually reduces also. It's not just like that. It's a gradual reduction. Now, delusion to some extent can be just like that, because when one sees clearly the nature of an existence, anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, suffering and not self, it's a kind of, not intellectual understanding, but a real knowledge, experientially, of this, either in meditation or in your daily activities. That realization can be almost a light bulb coming on moment of seeing clearly, vipassana, enlightenment, and dispelling all delusion. So what you're worried about, what you're confused about, when you truly understand impermanence, suffering and not self, becomes kind of insignificant. Well, why was I worried about that? I'm going to die anyway. I'll get old, get sick and die. Or my friends just died and they were only 40-something. They weren't expecting it. They woke up one morning and they just died. And boom, gone. Before that, were they worried all about this and that and searching for the truth? Probably. But where did it get them? Nowhere. Worrying about it. When you see that experience of your friend just dying like that, it brings it home. Oh God, life is short, it's unexpected, it's not predictable, we have no control over it. Why add to the suffering by thinking about it, overthinking the subject? It's only adding to the confusion. Try and stop thinking. So the past, the future, leave it out. And what you like and what you don't like about your meditation, the discomfort maybe, or the boredom maybe, note it as not liking, but don't attach to it as trying to have to change it. I want the pain to go away, or I want the boredom to be relieved by some interesting results or activity. But be with it as it is, and just that. Just keep practicing. Don't look in the mirror at yourself, and where you say that although you're aware that you're not your thoughts, in some respects that's true, but really you are your thoughts. The way your mind is trained and developing, where you are developing wholesome mind states and reducing unwholesome mind states, I'll repeat that, sorry. Where you are increasing wholesome mind states and reducing unwholesome mind states, this will manifest itself in all of your bodily actions. Your actions of body, speech, and in turn your mind cycling around to recycle the good into more good, improving and developing those wholesome mind states further. So really you are your thoughts in that respect. And meditation is about applying your thoughts to something simple and subtle like the breath, saying to yourself, relax my face, relax. Relaxing your face is not a command, but by the very nature of relaxing your face, your body will relax also. As will your mind become calm, peaceful and tranquil also. This can all be within that space-time of your meditation period. Set aside for that only. If you're meditating for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, I would say 20 minutes to half an hour is the bare minimum each and every day that you need to be practicing to see any true benefit from your practice. You will see gradually reducing this confusion that you're experiencing. And where you don't, it doesn't matter. Carry on as you do normally. Always with reference back to that Noble Eightfold Path. Something comes up in that you're not knowing how to deal with it, go back to the Noble Eightfold Path. What does it say in there? How should I deal with it? Firstly, it starts from right view. Well, I'm really upset about this situation. Right view says that there's impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and nothing's in my control. Apply those to that experience you're having. Well, no point worrying about it because it's impermanent, it'll go away. I can't control it anything, this is just suffering. Oh well, that's it. There's your answer. Karma is there in right view. If I do good, good things will happen. Less of those things I don't like will happen. So do good, practice generosity, give, dana, service to others, help others. You'll feel better, you'll be happier, you'll have contentment. It's amazing, the more you give away, the more content you are. The more you renounce in life, the more content you are. I can tell you that from personal experience. The Buddha shows us that from personal experience. You can only experience it personally by doing it, by renouncing what you don't need, by giving as much as you can, comfortably afford to give to others, by way of service. It doesn't have to be money, but by way of service, help, a little food, support, even a smile. All of these actions, it's all in the Noble Eightfold Path, will dispel delusion, moha, confusion. So go back to the source, like we do with anger that we were talking about earlier. Find out, well, what is it that's making you angry? Do you have to accept it, or can you walk away? With regards to confusion, it's not an educational system, an intellectual learning that you need to dispel it. It's a practice of sila, moral virtue, truth, and generosity, kindness to others, that will result in dispelling of delusion or your confusion here. And you are not at war within yourself. This is just greed, hatred and delusion trying to push you in one direction, and you, theoretically, trying to go in another direction. So take the theoretically out of the equation and just find time to do. Wake up an hour earlier in the morning, even if you're getting up at 3 a.m. like I am, in order that you've got time in the morning to meditate. Now I have all the time in the world to meditate, all day long, but I still get up at 3 a.m. in the morning for meditation. It's the best time. The world is quiet then. There's less interruptions, it's peaceful. Your body is rested, nourished from the previous day, but not over full. It's the perfect time, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever AM it is in your part of the world, and to suit your own agenda, schedule, program. Find that time every day, but with the view to enjoying that time, sitting in meditation for enjoyment. The more you do that, the more enjoyable it will become, the more easy it will be to have that as a part of your regular practice and routine. Then, as you go about your daily activities after that, there will be still the thoughts and confusion, but it will gradually decrease. Okay, so I think I'll just read this next question because it's quite a short answer. Only 250 nuns in Thailand. Absolutely shocking, it says. And then it goes on to say, you seem quite uncomfortable talking about the sexual inequality that exists in Theravada Buddhism. I get the feeling you are doubling your own words. Let's talk about this subject over and over. It's definitely not resolved. I don't really know anything about the sexual inequality that exists in Theravada Buddhism, as you put it that way, generally speaking, or that I would even call it sexual inequality. And I'm not uncomfortable, he says, fiddling, like nervously, uncomfortable talking about it. The subject itself, I'm uncomfortable talking about things I don't know much about. I'm not a woman. But as far as the statement is concerned, only 250 nuns in Thailand. I think that's most unlikely. I'm sure there are a considerable, there are millions of nuns in Thailand. Now, they may not be the form or particular forms that we're all used to, but that is the case for monks also. There are monks in different forms throughout the world. If you are living in Thailand, if you are Thai, you will understand their culture and what is appropriate to Theravada Buddhism and the different traditions and schools of that in Thailand. If you're outside of that culture looking in, why? Look to your own culture, your own environment where you are practicing, and bring about, if there needs to be, change in that place. And that place is where you can affect change. Why are you worried about Thailand? I'm not. And I've lived there. I was there for on and off for 5 years, and then I lived there full time in a monastery with nuns for 1 year. Now, the nuns there weren't ordained bhikkhunis, appreciably, because in the tradition in which I was staying, they didn't have bhikkhuni ordination. But those nuns didn't think any lesser of themselves, and neither did the monks think any lesser of them, because of the nature of their form. In fact, they were there and very supportive of monks and lay practitioners, and supportive in ways that monks could not be, especially with members of the opposite sex. And that works both ways. I do get a little uncomfortable with specifics of equality when it comes to sexual equality, because men are different to women. And in monastic life, in the Sangha, there is the Bhikkhuni Sangha and the Bhikkhu Sangha. And they are living and kept separate, because we are celibate orders. We are chaste. We are free from any sexual activity. So to mix the two genders would only be problematical. So I concentrate on my practice within the Bhikkhu Sangha and have little or no interaction with women, females, whether ordained or lay practitioners. As a relatively junior monk, I'm afforded that privilege of never having to have that interaction. Now, senior bhikkhus of many years in the robes are a part of Bhikkhuni Sangha hierarchy, regulations and order of things. I don't know how that works, and I don't need to know how that works. It's not part of what's requisite within my own practice. So it's not a case of being uncomfortable about it, but being open with you to say it isn't actually a problem in the world anymore. With sexual equality throughout the world, that has filtered into Buddhism, Buddhist practice, and I don't think it's the problem that many people make of it. But more so, people look to areas where it's everyone's very comfortable with the difference between bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, and try and make it a problem from an external point of view. Well, unless you're living within that culture, it shouldn't be interfered with. It should be left alone. Now, any individual, a monk or a nun, can just go out alone once they've had the training and be a monk or a nun. Now it is prescribed in the Vinaya and in the suttas. It's suggested that ladies shouldn't go and live in a cave or under a tree or in the forest alone. And I think even to this day, for obvious reasons, that's not, or it is, inadvisable. But some people could say it's the same for men. And most, let's say, ordained bhikkhus and bhikkhunis choose not to go and live alone in the forest under a tree or in a cave. There are very few, and there are some, as in my case, exceptions to that rule, who choose to live alone. I came to this country not knowing the language, not knowing the culture, not knowing anything about this country whatsoever. In fact, I had very many preconceived ideas which were very quickly proven to be absolute nonsense. I assumed it was just the same as the rest of India. I thought it was part of India and being the same as the rest of India. In itself has very many different variations in its different states throughout the huge continent that it is. But it couldn't be more different to India here. Similarly, it couldn't be more different to Thailand. But Thailand and Sri Lanka are both Buddhist cultures. Now, I haven't been to Burma, but I wouldn't try to criticize, judge, or think about what goes on there in terms of their religious culture, because I haven't lived in that culture. And I don't live in the Thai culture now, so I don't think of it or talk about the ways and views that may vary to how it's considered to be done in the Western world. So there we go, we've talked about it over and over the last few talks. I think it's come up a couple of times, and there's only so much I can say about it. But there are many nuns in different forms that I know throughout the world practicing, and certainly a lot more than 250, even in Thailand alone. Millions, in fact, throughout the world. And I know there's been lots of debate and things over bhikkhuni ordination and this and that and the other, but that problem to some extent has been overcome, has it not? There are many opportunities now for ladies to ordain as nuns. Actually, there is a question coming up on that subject, so I'll just cover that now. Can a lady become a monk? Yes, you can become a nun. It's the English words for monk and nun, but really they're inappropriate. A bhikkhu and a bhikkhuni are equivalent. But a bhikkhuni is a lady, a bhikkhu is a man. And they are equal. But they're not sexually equal, because one is a lady and one is a man. Otherwise you could have a bhikkhu and a bhikkhuni living together, for instance. Like a husband and wife. Well, it would be entirely unacceptable and inappropriate, considering that it is a celibate order. So, or maybe you think otherwise, but it's not really a point of discussion, that is a point of Vinaya. That monks and nuns, or men and women, don't live together. If you go on a meditation retreat in the so-called secular forms, like a Vipassana retreat, wherever it might be in the world, there'll be men there, there'll be women there, but you'll be in separate accommodations. And in the meditation hall, probably, I'm not sure, but you'll be sitting separately on different sides of the hall. It's just the way things are. So, I hope I've not avoided the subject again there, or seemed to be uncomfortable talking about it, because I'm certainly not, but I'm aware there are people very sensitive towards what people say on that subject, and in accordance with that sensitivity, I have to be a little bit careful with what I say. But there are bhikkhunis, and they have, these days, a huge platform for their own expression. If there is some discontent there, it is aired. So nothing's being hidden away or brushed under the carpet, and whereby there are cultures in the world that are different, we leave them to what they know best and what we all have our own differences. Again, back to where you can help, change, do something about it, then do it. But where you can't, with equanimity, accept it. So on that note, I hope there's something useful there you can put into your practice. And until next time, be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.